Welcome back to the Last Best Beer Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing a word from our lovely sponsors who really make this show possible. But as you know, each week I want to broaden our horizons a little bit and talk about some national and here today a little bit of international beer news. And today's theme for this section is also how beer and fitness work together. So it's kind of cool. I found two really neat stories. One is coming out of Canada, our friends to the north. And there's a gal in Calgary who has introduced something called Rage Yoga. Now, I don't know, that's kind of like an oxymoron, but Rage Yoga will help you get your zen on. And what she has done is paired her yoga practice with beer, booze, and it happens in an actual bar, but she also incorporates a few cuss words as well. So the idea of her is stress release is being able to kind of cuss and drink and sit in a bar while doing yoga. So she's called it Rage Yoga, and her name is Lindsay Istis, I believe. We'll put a link up there so you can learn more about it. But she says, quote, "It's a practice involving stretching, positional exercises, and bad humor, with the goal of attaining good health and to become zen as." But yeah, they're held inside of a basement pub twice a week, and everybody's separated from the rest of the bar. But they can do a lot of stuff, and it's $12 for this drop-in course, and it includes 2 drink tickets, each good for a pint of beer. So Rage Yoga, I don't know. I'd certainly try it. I'd probably be better at the drinking part than the stretching part, but you never know. The other part, other story I found this week is something called introducing the protein-enhanced workout beer. That's right. You know, there's lots of stories about how good beer is as a recovery drink after you're exercising or mountain biking or getting on the river or whatever. There's a guy who has introduced something called Brewteen. It's on Kickstarter right now, and he has a 178-calorie wheat lager that has more protein than your typical beer. Your typical beer comes in with 1 gram of protein on average, but this guy adds whey protein during the brewing process, and then that injects basically the bottle of beer with 7 grams of protein. So I don't know, it's going to be not as, he does say it's a little cloudy, but not going to be thick like a protein shake. But there's a cool article about it that also gives you some pros, but also some cons. The fellow who is part of the Spartan race, maybe not so much of a fan of this protein enhanced beer. And I liked what this guy says as a critic. He says, quote, "If I'm going to have a beer, I'm going to have a beer because it tastes good, not because it helps me recover." So there you go. Check it out. But there is some protein enhanced beer out in the world. Go and try it. So let's continue on. We got another fun interview and a little bit more good news. This week, I'm joined on the phone by Stu Stewart. Now, Stu has got a pretty exciting thing going on. He basically gets paid to drink beer and help people find good beer all around the world. So, Stu, I'm going to welcome you to the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to be on.
Yeah, and so what you're doing and why we're talking today is you are a University of Montana graduate, and you are leading a trip for Montana alumni on a Belgian beer tour. Is that right?
That's right.
Yes. Cool. Easy question so far. This was pretty fascinating with what you've got going on, but it's not something that's brand new for you. You actually run a business called Belgian Beer Me, and you can find information at belgianbeerme.com. But this is what you do, right? You take people to find good beer, mostly in Belgium, but I see some other trips as well. Why don't you tell me about the business that you run?
That's right. I offer 12 beer tours to Belgium each year and 3 to Germany. And I realize that I'm a lucky man.
I think people will agree with you.
Taken something that was a passion and turned it into my business. Excellent. And sometimes they say, do what you love and money will follow. I like to say either that or you'll really end up hating what you used to love. But in my case, I love it. So
well said. Well said. Pleased. Yeah. So most of these trips are, about a week to go over there? And have
They
fun?
range between 6 and 10 days long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I designed it that way so that sometimes people are of the mind that when they go to Europe, they want to have a trip that's at least 10 days long, and sometimes they just want it to complement something else that they're already doing.
Yeah.
Or sometimes people are just at a point in their careers where they don't have that much vacation time available, and 5 nights works out perfect for them.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, it seems that Belgian beer specifically has a special place in your heart. I've been looking over your website and getting to know some of the press there that's been out on this trip particularly. But, I'm reading this story back in 1987, then you got introduced to your first Belgian beer by your girlfriend, right? It was a bottle of Chimay Red.
That's right.
And you never looked back since.
I was living in Seattle at the time. It was right around the rise of the craft beer movement, and she knew about Chimay Red Label, and it just changed my whole outlook and approach to beer.
Is that beer still special today as far as when you drink? But now that you've had so many more, I presume, traveling the world, are there any other beers that really stick out for you that you look forward to when you get over there to try?
Oh, it's absolutely still special.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, beer is like a song. It can take you back to a certain time in your life just instantly.
Beautiful. Well said there. And then, so you got into beer, obviously first, you've been drinking beer, Belgian beer, but then you took a trip here. I see your first trip over to Belgium was in 2004 with a mutual friend of ours, Mike Saxton, who runs beertrips.com. And
Right.
what was that experience for you taking your first trip abroad?
It was a really nice tour. I had my eyes open to Belgian beer even further, and the people of Belgium and its history and scenery and culture, and I just fell in love with it. And then I just kept going back. And I had a feeling I was going to enjoy Belgium, but I had no idea just how wonderful it was going to be.
Awesome. When you started here, when we were just chatting and getting started, you were kind of talking about the making your passion into your profession. And, I'm sure people get excited and inspired by listening to people like you that have done it. But, it certainly doesn't look like it was an overnight, here you go. You decided that you're going to start taking people to Belgium. But, it was a progression, right? You fell in love with the beer in 2004. You took a trip to Belgium, and then now, a few years later, 2007, you're kind of taking you're teaching an appreciation class there at the University of Washington in Seattle. And then when did you finally get to launch your own company that does this?
Belgian Beer Me started out as a Belgian Beer appreciation class, and I was teaching through the experimental college at the University of Washington in Seattle. And then I kept going back to Belgium on my own. And then people in my beer classes said, well, you know so much about Belgian beer in Belgium, you should lead tours. So at that point, I started thinking about piecing together tours and some themes and a logical progression of events. And then my first tour went 2009. That was my Lonely Monks Trappist tour.
Okay.
And just like I said on the company timeline there, it consisted of me and 3 people.
Wow.
Driving around Belgium in a Volvo station wagon.
Beautiful. In October.
Yeah.
Good time.
So I started out with 3 tours, and then I gradually kept adding tours, and now we're up to 12 tours each year. And then I've also expanded into Bamberg, Germany, and I do 3 tours a year to Germany now, too.
Excellent. I don't know if there's anybody that is there a good quote-unquote beginner's trip to take on there, or is it really just going to get people to your website, look at what you offer, and go to the place that they want to go? Or is there any progression to where you go and what you do and what a good introduction to Belgium life is?
There is, and I have a tour that's 6 days, 5 nights long called the legendary Zito's Beer Festival Tour. And that's a really nice tour because, number one, it's the least expensive tour I offer, so it's open to a lot of people, but it also gives you a real nice sampling of Belgian beer. We get to go to Trappist West Vleteren, which, of course, is on everybody's to-do list when they go to Belgium.
Yes.
And we also get to go to the largest beer festival in Belgium, Belgium, which is called the Zeitos Beer Festival. We get to spend some time in Bruges. We get to spend some time in the university town of Leuven. And it's just a really great tour to whet your appetite for more Belgium. And I basically have two types of people to go on my tours. Sometimes this will be the trip of a lifetime. This may be the only time they ever go to Europe. So it's a big deal, and it's got to be great. Other people, like I say, once they see just what's available there and how this is just the tip of the iceberg, they'll return year and year again. And now I'd say more than 30% of my travelers are returning customers.
Excellent. Hey, let's talk about this trip in particular that is happening June 14th to June 20th, and this is the Montana Alumni Association Beer Tour in Belgium. You got started with a friend, but why don't you give us a few details about what that trip's going to entail and how people can sign up for it?
This is a really, really interesting tour, and it's beer-focused, but we also take in some other cultural events there, such as World War II Museum and some abbeys. And we visit the Tyncott Military Cemetery and the Museum of Passchendaele, which is all World War I history. Bastogne is World War II history. And we spend time in Bruges, and we spend time in Bastogne, which is where the Battle of the Bulge took place, and then we spend time in Leuven. So I always tell people, if you can only go to one place in Belgium, go to Bruges. So it's really important that we spend time there.
Excellent.
It's a beautiful historic city. You can walk to everything. It's a perfectly preserved medieval city.
Now, it looks like you'll be able to take as many as 24 people on this trip, and I assume that maybe there's still some space for people to hop on if they want?
There is.
Excellent.
24 is our max. Most of my tours average around 14 people.
Okay. And they can register by getting on BelgianBeerMe.com. Yes, they can find out details, a little bit more of an itinerary for this trip and other trips.
That's right. And something else that's important to mention is this is not just limited to Montana alumni. It's open to general public.
Great.
But I created this tour for the Alumni Association because it's my alma mater, and Bill Johnston, who's the director there, asked me to develop this tour years ago, and we had been talking about it, working on it, and so it's finally come to fruition, and I'm happy to be partnering with the University of Montana Alumni Association on this one.
Excellent. Well, Stu, thank you so much. It sounds like an incredible business, but also this trip particularly sounds just delightful and super delicious as well. But hey, thank you so much for taking the time with me today and letting people know. And we'll put a link up to your website and to this article that's been really informative about it. But absolutely, I encourage my listeners, check it out, BelgianBeerMe.com and the Montana Alumni Beer Tour of Belgium. Stu, thanks so much.
You bet. If I could just kind of put a bow on it.
Yes.
Bullet point a few things here. One is it's important to mention that this is a fundraiser for University of Montana Alumni Association, and a portion of the proceeds from the tour do go to the association.
Excellent.
I also want to encourage people to go on Facebook and like the Belgian Beer Me Facebook page to follow along with current tours.
Perfect. We'll put a link on that as well. Awesome. Well, yes, find them on Facebook, and really good to hear. A portion of the funds will go to the Montana Alumni Association there, so putting your dollars to good work. So thanks for that, Stu, and good luck on all your travels.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on the show, and I just want to say hello to all my old friends and fellow alumni from University of Montana who are still in the Western Montana area.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Stu. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me for another episode of The Last Best Beer Show, coming to you every week with lots of fun, lots of enthusiasm, and lots of cool stories. Hey, save the date. This coming Wednesday, March 23rd, our next Business and Brews. It's called Missoula's Past, Told Over Pints. It's going to be at La Grada Bella, which is below the Old Post, and we're joined by our good friends Tim France, owner of Warden's Market in Delhi. The event is 6 to 8 p.m. We do have to limit it to 40 participants max, but there's no charge to attend. Beer and wine will be available for purchase. Hope to see you there. We'll be there. And until next week, I say, cheers, Missoula.
Love craft beer and want to learn how to brew your own? Take this online course to get insider tips from Montana brewers and top secret recipes for local favorites.